5 years been hosting Peace Corps volunteers. Peace Corps volunteers joined the legacy of partnership and friendship between Americans and Namibians that took root in the first days of Namibia's independence. Tell us more about the work of the volunteers and why they need to be celebrated. We're joined by Dick Day, Director of Africa Operations for the Peace Corps, as well as Deana Willerth, Peace Corps volunteer in education. Morning and welcome to GMN.
Morning. Morning. Great to be here.
Mr. Days, maybe we can start with you. What is the overall objective of the Peace Corps? What are you trying to achieve in terms of, this partnership of having United States American citizens go and travel the rest of the world and help with development issues? What is the point? What is the objective?
The Peace Corps was really the concept of President John F. Kennedy, and it was one of the first initiatives, in fact, that he launched. And if you put it in kind of a historical context, it was established right as many countries were coming to independence throughout Africa and Asia. And the idea was to send Americans abroad to help build capacity of host country nationals and also to help foster better understanding between Americans and people of foreign nations. Okay. And as they were doing that, to build capacity and also to foster peace and friendship.
Okay. Deana, talk to us a little bit about, obviously you being a volunteer, what incites an interest from somebody like yourself to pack up from home, leave so far, leave loved ones behind? Why would you even want to do something like that? Give us a little bit of insight on that.
Yeah, for me it was very much a incentive to meet other people in other places and possibly see the way things are in different places in the world. I love America, but I've just always wanted to see the way things are in other places.
Okay. What are some of the duties entrusted with the Peace Corps? What are some of the the values and the work that they have to commit themselves to?
Sure. I see Peace Corps volunteers really serving three functions. In some ways, they are development professionals that are working at the grassroots. Their primary role is to really try to build capacity and to help communities achieve their goals and objectives, and sometimes even to help them figure out what their needs are. But secondly, they also serve as grassroots diplomats, and they're agents of change. So we work in the education sectors, health sectors, environment, agriculture, and youth development, as well as small enterprise development. Okay. We have about 7,000 volunteers that are serving around the world right now.
Wow. And how does it work? How does the program work in terms of the modalities?
Well, I'm an education volunteer, so I'm actually positioned in the north in a small village called Onjajahwi. We're placed there, and we're, again, like Dick was saying, asked to assess the needs of the area and then try to meet them as best as possible and bring in resources that we have to assist them. And then also to again establish that relationship.
Okay. I think some of the, in terms of volunteering, and especially in relationships with African countries and the West, there's almost sometimes the complexities around Africa being dependent and needs help, and there's this self-fulfilling prophecies almost in a way in terms of perception. But how do you ensure that volunteers come here with an understanding that there is reciprocity, that as much as you have to give, you have to learn from these places? How do you ensure that there is not a messiah complex within these volunteers?
I think that's a great question, Patrick. And one of the things that we do very early on in our training, which lasts about 10 weeks typically for volunteers when they first arrive in country, we spend a lot of time on learning the local languages and on learning the culture. And we really, I think the overall sentiment of Peace Corps and our volunteers is that we come to serve. We come to learn. And we don't come with all the answers. We come with ideas. We come with lots of energy. But it's really working in a partnership with a local community, with a hosting institution, with a school, trying to figure out what their problems are and how we can help resolve those.
Okay. Deana, from obviously not from a technical side, but from a more human interest side, how's your experience in Namibia been from the day you arrived? What are some of the challenges in your day-to-day life that you experience on the ground?
It's been an incredible experience, truly. Challenges, just orienting myself, which I would say is, again, with training and also with just the people here, it's been completely remedied, I guess. I wouldn't emphasize the challenges so much as just the outpouring of assistance, the people here are just incredible. So.
And what have you experienced on the ground in terms of being an educational volunteer? What have you witnessed about the Namibian education system, and where do you find your role to be significant within that little village, within that school that you experience on a daily basis?
For me, I think it's just been really fun to do the cultural exchange. People are asking me questions all the time about how we do things in America, and that gives me an opportunity to learn more about Namibia and the way things are here. Of course, there's the aspect of bringing what we know and our limited experience again, but it's always been an exchange. So I feel that's been my greatest opportunity.
Tell us a little bit about the highlights of the Peace Corps, maybe just not here in Namibia, but throughout. What are some of the success stories that come out, Mr. Day?
Well, they're innumerable. We've had over 230,000 volunteers serve around the world in almost 140 countries over the past 54 years. I like to tell a few that really speak to, I think, the profound impact of Peace Corps' really intense people-to-people model. And several years ago, I got a chance to meet the foreign minister of Ghana, and we were just chatting, and he mentioned that as a 13-year-old, he had a Peace Corps volunteer teacher, and I said, well, yeah, tell me about that experience. And he said, well, it changed my life. I'm doing what I'm doing today because of her. He had learned self-worth, self-confidence, excellence, service, humility, perseverance, all from somebody who was teaching him French. So what she really did was she modeled to him values and how to live life and how to have dreams that were bigger than his small little rural community in northern Ghana. And those type of examples really are just countless, but I think it's the work day in, day out, volunteers like Deana that are working in health centers here in Namibia, that are working in schools, that are showing up to work and are really showing the importance of the communities that they serve, of the kids that they're teaching. That I think is really going to make a difference over the long term.
Okay. So, Deana, maybe you can give us an insight into how your day looks like as a volunteer. What are some of the activities that a volunteer typically goes through on a day-to-day basis?
So, again, I'm a teacher. So, we start off, I live in a teacher house, so not too far from the school. My commute is not extreme. I go to school. We start off the day with morning assembly, singing some songs that all of the children know, and then raise the flag, singing the national anthem. Then we kind of, as teachers, we just go on to our classes and our planning, collaborating with the other teachers that we work with there. After that, when you're done in the evenings, you're either marking or doing the teacher things, or in the village, usually we'll all just come together and sit under a tree because it's far too hot otherwise.
Mr. Day, tell us, sometimes obviously we struggle with this idea of, like institutionalizing volunteerism. People feel like in African context they volunteer enough, whether it's, hosting somebody at their home. But in terms of the value that it adds to society, why is it important for people to volunteer?
I think it's important because all of us have something to give, and I think what certainly our experience here in Namibia, across the continent, and in the 26 countries where we serve in Africa, there is such generosity that is poured out to volunteers. We are literally welcomed into communities, into homes. Volunteers have early on their service a family that adopts them. These are not necessarily families with a lot of means. But I think it just really speaks to the value of generosity and crossing cultures, really getting to know one another and building bonds of friendship that sometimes can last a lifetime.
But what does it do in terms of national development? Obviously, in America, there's been more of a systemic volunteerism culture. But what if some of the positive gains to society when people stand up and say, I have time to volunteer? What do you say from an American perspective?
I think that there's a sense of empowerment that one has, that you can make a difference in your world. Most of our volunteers come with very little job experience. They learn a lot here on the job. In some ways, they get to model that to Namibian counterparts about how you can continue to grow professionally. And what we're trying to do in terms of sustainability, which you were asking about earlier, is really help build the capacity of our host country counterparts, of their institutions, so that over time they'll be able to operate very effectively without the assistance of a volunteer.
Deana, what are you hoping to get out of this experience?
What I've already gotten, and also I guess what I hope to continue to get, is exactly like Dick was saying. You meet these incredible people, and maybe you also feel empowered, but just the things I'm going to take with me are the memories and also the friendships that I've made here. I've truly been adopted into the families of the people here. It's been incredible.
So in terms of Peace Corps' mission and strategy, maybe within the next 5 years, what are the key areas that you're going to be looking at? Have you identified specific areas? Are you going to continue with the programming that you've established so far?
Here in Namibia?
Well, just generally, I think, in terms of the mission of the Peace Corps.
I think what in Africa in general, what we're really focusing on are addressing key health needs, working around HIV/AIDS, first 1,000 days for infants, trying to reduce maternal mortality, and those are all things that will be very key to here in Namibia. They reflect the type of work that is already being done. We're also working on stomping out malaria across Africa. We have a couple thousand volunteers that are raising awareness, and volunteers in the northern part of the country where malaria still exists in Namibia are doing that. Also working on enhancing income-generating activities through small enterprises and also through agriculture and transformation of agricultural products. So I think those will be the key areas that we'll be working on in the next handful of years.
Okay. Deana, let's talk a little bit about what are the benefits to you as a volunteer, because a lot of people in Namibia at least have this perception that when you volunteer, it's for free. I'm not giving up my time. There's very limited benefits, entrenched in this activity. So maybe you can tell the nation, what have you gained as a volunteer?
Yes, definitely. That's a question that many people ask. It's a very difficult thing to quantify, and I appreciate what Dick said. It's one of those things that maybe we can sort of by being there encourage people to do, because I think until you've actually been there doing it, it's difficult to say, to show someone what you've gained. But for me, it's been an incredible love, not only of the people I'm constantly in contact with, but of a different culture, and just seeing a place that I can, again, go home, and my family doesn't know anything about Namibia. They didn't, at least until I came here. So just spreading the word about where I am.
Okay. Muzide, in your final words, maybe just, again, another message to the nation in terms of, making that argument for volunteerism and the mission of the Peace Corps. Just in conclusion, what are those?
Well, there's a saying that's better to give than to receive. And just pick up on Deana's point. I think one of the things that volunteers often say as they finish up their service, that they really received more than they ever gave. Even though they've spent 2 years giving, and sometimes very sacrificially as they've served. But fundamentally what Peace Corps is about is changing lives. It's about the ability to impact people's values, their worldviews, to instill new dreams and aspirations, and then actually impart skills and education so that they'll actually be able to achieve those dreams over their lifetime.
Thank you very much for coming out and making the time just to tell us what the mission and your daily experiences are as a Peace Corps volunteer.
Well, thank you, Patrick, and we'd like to give you a Peace Corps patch.
Thank you. Well, maybe as I get my Peace Corps patch, remember the message, it's better to give than to receive. I think that's something that we can all learn from, especially in the festive season where it's a time to be with family, friends, and to ensure that you're giving more to society than you're receiving. We'll be back with more on GMN